Ava was walking home late one evening when she suddenly heard a scream echo through the alleyway. She froze, heart pounding in her chest, the sound so raw, so desperate, it pierced through the stillness of the night. Without thinking, she sprinted toward the sound, her breath ragged, her mind racing. As she rounded the corner, she saw a young girl, no older than 16, her eyes wide with fear, standing on the edge of the street, staring into the abyss. It was as if she had seen something that no one should ever witness, something that had shattered her soul. Ava rushed forward, calling out, "Hey, are you okay? What happened?" But the girl didn't answer. Instead, she just kept shaking her head, her body trembling. In that moment, Ava felt a pang of something deep within her, a familiar pull. She knew she had to help, but what if this was just the beginning of something far darker than she could ever imagine? Ava stood there, the night air cold against her skin, her heart racing. "What happened? You can tell me," she repeated softly, her voice barely more than a whisper in the silence of the alley. But the girl didn't respond. Ava's mind raced as she searched the girl's face for some sign, some clue, but there was nothing, just a deep, haunting emptiness. Slowly, Ava reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, considering calling for help. But as she turned the phone over in her hand, she hesitated. Something about this girl's silence felt like a warning, a sign that this was no ordinary encounter. Something was off. The girl was clearly scared, but what was she running from? Ava couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was only just beginning to unfold. Ava's breath caught in her throat as she felt the weight of the moment. Something was wrong. Her instinct told her not to call the police just yet, not until she understood more about what had happened. The girl's terror was palpable, but it didn't make sense. Why hadn't she said anything? She hadn't even tried to run. Ava's mind flashed to the worst-case scenarios, an abduction, a threat hanging over this girl's head. She scanned the alley again, looking for any sign of danger. Nothing. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow move. Ava's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to face the girl again. The air around them felt charged, as if something was about to happen. "Hey, we need to get out of here," Ava said gently, taking a step closer. The girl didn't react, her gaze still fixed on the same spot in the distance. Ava's mind raced. What had she seen? The silence between them grew longer, heavier. Ava placed her hand on the girl's shoulder again, this time more firmly. She had to get her out of here before whatever had caused that scream came back. Suddenly, the girl jolted as though snapped from a trance. She looked up at Ava, her wide eyes finally meeting hers. "They'll find me," the girl whispered hoarsely, her voice barely audible. "You don't know who they are. They'll find me." Ava's pulse quickened. The girl's words sent a chill down her spine. This was no accident. Someone, or something, was after her. And it was only a matter of time before they arrived. Ava stood in her small apartment, staring at the empty chair across from her, her thoughts swirling. The girl's words echoed in her mind. "They'll find me." It felt like a puzzle, pieces scattered, but out of reach. Ava couldn't shake the image of the girl's terrified face, nor the haunting sense that something darker was at play. She had always been the one to help, teachers, troubled kids, people in need. But this felt different. As she sat down at her desk, she began to sift through the papers she had collected over the years, documents about her biological family, the ones she had never known. There were secrets in her past, things her adopted family had kept from her, and the more she dug, the more she realized how little she actually knew. She could feel it in her bones. Her search for the truth about the girl was somehow connected to the mystery of her own family's past. It was as if the pieces were about to come together in ways she never expected. She was about to uncover something far more dangerous than she could ever imagine. The next day, Ava met with her closest friend, Lena, at a local cafe. It was a small, cozy place, warm lights, soft chatter, the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the air. Lena, who had always been a voice of reason, watched Ava closely, sensing the change in her. You seem different, Ava. What's going on? She asked, her tone light, but there was an underlying concern. Ava hesitated, then spoke quietly. I don't know, Lena. It's like I'm chasing something that doesn't want to be found. There's this girl I found, she's terrified, like she's running from something. But she won't say what. Lena looked at her with a mix of surprise and concern. Are you sure you're not getting too involved? You've always been a fixer, but this feels different. You're digging into something you might not be ready for. Ava's gaze faltered. I don't have a choice, Lena. There's something I need to understand. Something about my own family, and now, this girl. It's all connected. I can feel it. Ava couldn't stop thinking about Lena's words, even as she walked through the city streets that afternoon. She had always trusted Lena, but something about this situation didn't sit right with her. The more she uncovered about her biological family, the dark secrets, the unspeakable events, she realized she was standing on the edge of a much larger story. As she pulled out her phone to check her messages, an unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Hesitantly, she answered. Ava? The voice on the other end was quiet, urgent. I know who you are. I know what you're searching for. Ava's heart skipped a beat. Who is this? She demanded. The voice continued. It's not just your family you're connected to. There's more to the girl you found. They will stop at nothing to keep her silent. And now, they know you're involved. You're in danger. The call abruptly ended. Ava stood frozen on the sidewalk, the weight of the words sinking in. She had no idea who was behind the call, but she knew one thing. Her search had just become far more dangerous. Ava returned home that evening, her mind racing with the call's warning. She sat at her desk, staring at the papers in front of her. The girl's haunting words, "They'll find me," echoed in her mind. The call had made it clear. Someone was watching. Someone was keeping track of her every move. She couldn't ignore it anymore. There was too much at stake. As Ava sifted through the family documents again, something caught her eye. An old photograph hidden among the papers. It was a photo of her biological father smiling at a political rally from years ago. But in the background a figure stood watching him, someone familiar. Someone who seemed to be watching her. Ava's pulse quickened. She had never seen this person before, but their presence felt undeniable. The threads were beginning to weave together, and Ava felt a deep chill run through her. Ava knew she had crossed a line. She had always been the type to dig into the past, to uncover the truth, but now, it felt like the truth was pulling her deeper into something she wasn't prepared for. The image of the mysterious figure in the photograph haunted her, and the call from the stranger only amplified the sense of danger. She had no choice but to keep going, but every step she took seemed to lead her further down a path of shadows. The girl, the secrets about her family, the calls, everything was connected in ways she couldn't yet understand. The stakes had just become too high. As she stood up from her desk, Ava made a decision. She was going to confront whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. Ava's research led her down a dangerous path, a path she couldn't back away from even if she tried. Each new document, each new interview, each cryptic message only seemed to uncover more questions than answers. The deeper she dug into her father's past, the clearer it became that he wasn't just involved in politics, he was deeply entangled in something darker. Political betrayal. A scandal so grave that it threatened to unravel the very fabric of everything she had ever believed about her family. But the more she uncovered, the more she realized that this wasn't just about her family anymore. The girl she had found in the alley, she wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was connected to this vast network of corruption and lies. As Ava connected the dots, it became evident. Someone was trying to keep both her and the girl silenced, and that someone wasn't just from her past. It was a force much larger than anything she could have imagined. Ava's investigation started to put her at odds with the people she once trusted. Lena, who had always been a grounding presence in her life, was beginning to pull away. It started with subtle hints, small evasions when Ava asked about her own family's past, nervous glances whenever the subject of the girl or the scandal came up. Finally, one evening, as Ava sat across from her at the same cafe, Lena's words hit her like a cold wave. "You're digging into things you don't understand, Ava. You need to stop. Some things aren't meant to be uncovered. Ava's heart sank. The warning felt like betrayal. You know something, don't you? Ava asked, voice shaky, her grip tightening around her coffee cup. Lena looked away, her face drawn with worry. I'm trying to protect you. You don't know what you're dealing with. But Ava knew. She knew the truth was just out of reach. And now it felt like Lena wasn't telling her everything she needed to hear. As Ava continued to dig deeper, the stakes became impossibly high. One night, while going through a series of old news articles, she stumbled upon a chilling revelation, a connection between her father and a notorious political figure involved in multiple cover-ups. The figure, a man with powerful connections, had a shadowy past, and every trail Ava followed seemed to lead to him. But it wasn't just his political career that terrified her. It was the rumors surrounding his dealings. People who had crossed him didn't just disappear. They were erased. Ava's blood ran cold. She was no longer just investigating her family's past. She had inadvertently walked into a deadly game of power and deception. She had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went, but she was in it now. There was no turning back. The danger was no longer abstract. It had become personal. Ava had received an anonymous email that night with a single line of text. Stop now, or it will be the last thing you ever do. The chill that ran down her spine wasn't from the cold air outside. It was the undeniable feeling that someone was watching her every move. She couldn't be sure who had sent it, but the words were clear. Whoever was behind this, they wanted to silence her. Her search had stirred something dangerous, something that would stop at nothing to protect its secrets. In the days that followed, Ava felt as though she were being followed, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up whenever she was alone. Her mind raced as she tried to piece everything together. The girl in the alley, the strange phone calls, the warning from Lena, all of it was connected. But to what end? And more importantly, who was she up against? Despite the threats, Ava couldn't stop. She was too close now, too entangled in the web of her father's secrets, and the girl's silence screamed louder than any warning. Ava knew the only way to stop the forces against her was to expose them. She had to confront the powerful individuals hiding behind the curtains of her family's past. The next day, Ava met with a journalist who had been investigating the same political figure, someone who had reached out to her after hearing about her search. Together, they began to piece together the horrifying reality of what had been covered up for years. The more they uncovered, the more dangerous it became. But Ava wasn't backing down. This was no longer just about the truth. It was about survival. The final confrontation was approaching, and Ava wasn't going to let fear dictate her actions. Ava had been bracing herself for a confrontation, but she wasn't prepared for this. Lena, her closest friend, sat across from her in a small dimly lit cafe, her face pale, eyes downcast. There's something you don't know, Lena whispered, her voice shaking. I've known about your father for years, about the things he did, and I've been hiding it from you. I didn't know how to tell you. Ava stared at her, disbelief washing over her. What are you talking about? She demanded, her pulse quickening. Lena took a deep breath and looked up, meeting Ava's gaze for the first time in days. Your father was involved in something much darker than just politics, Ava. He was connected to people who would do anything to protect their secrets, people who would go to great lengths to silence anyone who knew too much. Ava's mind raced. She could feel the ground shifting beneath her. And why didn't you tell me this sooner? She asked, her voice hoarse. Lena's eyes welled up with tears. I was trying to protect you, but now, you're in too deep. Ava's world felt like it was crumbling around her. Lena's betrayal hit harder than she had expected. You knew all along, and you didn't say anything. Ava's voice cracked with hurt and anger. Lena nodded, her hand trembling as she wiped away a tear. I couldn't. You wouldn't have believed me. Your father was a part of something, a criminal network, a conspiracy that went all the way to the top. But he wasn't the only one. There are others, people close to you, who would do anything to keep you from finding out the truth. Ava's mind reeled. Everything she had been uncovering, the lies, the secrecy, had just taken on a new, terrifying dimension. "Why are you telling me this now?" Ava demanded, her heart racing. Lena looked at her, her face pained. "Because I can't let you keep going without knowing what's at stake. They're watching you, Ava. They've always been watching you." Ava's mind was spinning. "Who else knows about this?" she demanded. Lena hesitated, as if weighing her next words carefully. "There's a group of people, a secret society of sorts, a cabal of powerful individuals who've been manipulating things for decades. Your father was just one of many pawns. But they've been watching you, Ava. They knew you would find out the truth eventually." Ava's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the table. "How do you know all of this?" she asked, her voice low and strained. Lena glanced around nervously, then leaned in closer. "Because they approached me, Ava. They tried to make me part of their plan. And when I refused, they threatened me, threatened you. They know everything. You're their next target." Ava's stomach turned. She had no idea how deep this went, how many lives were involved. And now it was clear. She was up against something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Ava sat in stunned silence, absorbing the weight of Lena's words. The danger was no longer theoretical, it was real. "What do I do now?" Ava whispered, her voice barely audible. Lena looked at her with sorrowful eyes. "You have to leave, Ava. You need to disappear for a while. Get away from everything. Your family, your work, everyone. They'll be watching you. They're already watching you." Ava shook her head, her chest tight with emotion. "I can't just leave. I can't run away." Lena reached out, placing her hand over Ava's. "If you stay, they'll hurt you. They'll use you as a pawn, just like they did with your father. You have to trust me on this." Ava looked into Lena's eyes, searching for any sign that she was lying. But there was none. For the first time she felt a deep sense of betrayal, but also a heavy sense of truth. This was bigger than anything she had imagined. Ava stood up abruptly, the chair scraping across the floor. She couldn't sit still any longer. "No, I'm not running. I need to expose this. I can't just disappear and let them win," Ava said with newfound determination. Lena's voice trembled as she stood as well. "Ava, please, you don't understand. If you keep pushing, you'll be in more danger than you can imagine. They have connections everywhere." Ava turned to face her, her eyes fierce. "I don't care. I can't live with myself knowing the truth and not doing anything about it. I have to take them down." Lena hesitated, then nodded, a deep sadness in her eyes. "Then I can't help you anymore, but just know, you're on your own." Ava felt a pang of loss as she turned away, but the fire inside her only grew stronger. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready to fight. Ava stood in the dimly lit hallway of a high-rise building, the weight of what she was about to do pressing down on her. This was it, the moment she had been building toward. She had uncovered everything. The names, the faces, the plans, and the hidden truths about her family and the political scandal that ran deeper than anyone realized. She had connected the dots between her father, the girl, and the network of powerful figures who had been pulling the strings for years. The phone call from the journalist had confirmed everything. The time for secrets was over. Ava's pulse raced as she reached into her pocket for the flash drive that held everything she needed to bring them down. As she moved toward the office door, she thought of the threats, the warnings, and Lena's fearful words. But there was no turning back now. She couldn't live in the shadow of these lies anymore. Ava had chosen her path. She was going to expose them all, no matter the consequences. Ava opened the office door and slipped inside, careful not to make a sound. The room was dark, but her eyes quickly adjusted. She could see the large desk in front of her, the file cabinets stacked with confidential documents. In the corner, a large window looked out onto the city skyline, but she didn't have time to admire the view. She moved swiftly toward the desk, pulling the chair out quietly as she sat down. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, opening the encrypted files that she had copied onto the flash drive. As she began to search through the documents, she heard footsteps approaching down the hallway. Her heart leaped in her chest. Someone was coming. She had to move quickly. In a few moments, the truth would be out in the open, unless they stopped her first. The door creaked open just as Ava finished copying the last of the files. She froze, the weight of the moment crashing down on her. Standing in the doorway was the last person she expected to see, Lena Turl. She was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Ava, stop," she whispered urgently, closing the door behind her. "You don't know what you're doing. They'll kill you for this." Ava turned slowly, the flash drive still clutched in her hand. "I can't stop now, Lena. I'm not going to let them get away with this." Lena's face twisted with emotion, a mixture of fear, guilt, and desperation. "You don't understand. You've already gone too far. It's not just about you anymore. They'll come after everyone you care about." Ava's voice was steady, even as she felt a cold sweat forming on her brow. "I've already lost everything, Lena. I'm not going to lose myself too." The tension in the room grew unbearable. Ava's fingers tightened around the flash drive as she met Lena's gaze. "I know what you're trying to say, Lena," Ava said, her voice soft but firm. "But it's too late. I've come this far and I can't turn back. You knew the truth, and you kept it from me. You lied to me for years." Lena's eyes filled with tears as she stepped closer, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to lie to you, Ava. I was just trying to protect you. I thought if you knew, you'd be in more danger. But you don't realize how deep this goes." Ava shook her head, stepping back. "It's already too deep. You've already kept me in the dark long enough." She turned back to the computer screen, clicking through the final documents, her face set with determination. "I'm doing this for both of us." Ava's hand hovered over the send button on the computer. She could feel the weight of the decision. This was it, the moment that would change everything. Once she uploaded the files, there was no going back. Her fingers brushed the mouse, and with one click, the information was sent. Ava stood there for a moment, her breath caught in her throat, waiting for the inevitable fallout. But nothing happened. The system didn't crash. The door didn't burst open. For a brief moment, Ava allowed herself a breath of relief. Then the phone on the desk rang. Ava's heart skipped a beat. She picked it up, her voice shaking. "Hello?" A cold, familiar voice answered. "You've made a big mistake, Ava. And now you'll pay the price." Ava's eyes narrowed as she listened, her resolve hardening. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she replied, her voice steady. "You'll never silence me." The aftermath of sending the files was nothing like Ava had expected. The silence in her apartment was deafening, the weight of what she had done hanging heavily in the air. She knew the information would spread like wildfire, and the powerful individuals who had tried to bury the truth would now be scrambling to cover their tracks. Ava stared at the computer screen, watching as the articles she had worked tirelessly to prepare began to take shape. Every word was a step toward justice. It wasn't just about exposing the political corruption anymore. It was about giving the girl from the alley a voice, and in doing so, finding her own voice again. For the first time in what felt like years, Ava felt like she was on the right side of history. But the battle wasn't over yet. As the story began to circulate online, the calls started coming in, some threatening, others offering support. Ava had started something that could not be undone. And now, she had to finish it. As Ava sat there, the phone rang again. This time it was a different voice, one she didn't recognize. "Ava," the voice said, calm and measured, "I know what you did. You've exposed everything. Now you need to understand something. We can't let this go unpunished." Ava's heart skipped a beat. "Who is this?" she demanded, her grip tightening on the phone. "We don't need to explain ourselves to you," the voice replied. "But you'll soon understand the consequences of your actions." The line went dead, and Ava dropped the phone, staring at it in disbelief. The threats were growing more personal, but something inside her clicked. She wasn't afraid anymore. They could try to stop her, but the truth had already come to light. Ava had exposed the very people who had controlled her life, and now, she was going to take them down. Days passed, and the pressure mounted. Ava began to receive public support, as whistleblowers and other victims of the powerful cabal came forward, each one sharing their story. The media frenzy grew, and soon the very people who had tried to bury the truth were on the defensive. But the cost of this victory was high. Ava couldn't walk the streets without fear of being followed. Every time she left her apartment, she felt eyes on her. Still, she pressed on, determined to see this through. She had been afraid of this moment for so long, afraid of confronting the dark side of her family, afraid of what the truth might cost. But, as the scandal unraveled, she realized that the price was worth it. The girl from the alley was free now, her voice heard by the world. And Ava, she had reclaimed her life, her purpose. The weight she had carried for so long was lifting piece by piece. The day the politicians and powerful figures finally faced public scrutiny, Ava stood outside the courthouse, watching as reporters swarmed. They were finally being held accountable for their actions, their empire of corruption crumbling beneath them. Ava had worked tirelessly, piecing together the stories, the evidence, and the truth that had been hidden for far too long. The victory was bittersweet. For all the progress, for all the justice, the cost was still there. Ava thought back to the girl from the alley, whose life had been turned upside down by the very people Ava had exposed. Her journey had just begun, but at least now she had a chance at a future. Ava felt a hand on her shoulder, and turned to find Lena standing beside her, a hesitant look in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Ava," Lena said quietly. "I didn't know how much it would cost you." Ava smiled softly. "It's not over yet. But we're closer than we've ever been." Weeks later, Ava sat on a park bench, watching the sunset. The world felt different now, lighter, somehow. The heavy burden that had weighed her down for so long was finally gone. Her work was far from over. There was still much to do, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she could breathe again. She had faced the truth, fought for it, and won. And in the process, she had found a strength she never knew she had. Ava looked at the horizon, a small smile tugging at her lips. The future was uncertain, but she knew now that no matter what came next, she was ready to face it. She had taken back her life, and nothing would ever take that away. Ava stood at the edge of the city, the soft breeze brushing against her skin as she gazed out over the skyline. It felt like a lifetime ago that she had walked these streets, weighed down by secrets, unsure of where she was going. But now, everything had changed. The city seemed different somehow, brighter, more alive, as though it had shed its own layers of darkness. She had confronted the lies, uncovered the truth, and brought the powerful forces who had hidden it all to justice. The weight that had burdened her heart for so long had finally lifted. As she stood there feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, she knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, and battles yet to come. But for the first time, Ava felt a sense of peace. She had faced the storm, and now she could walk forward, unburdened. This was her moment of freedom. Ava slowly walked through the familiar streets, her steps purposeful but light. The city felt different now, no longer a place of secrets and shadows. She could see people going about their lives, talking, laughing, as if the weight of the corruption she had uncovered no longer haunted these places. But she knew the truth, that the fight for justice was never truly over. There would always be those who sought to manipulate and control. But Ava had learned something important through this journey. No matter how dark it got, the truth always had a way of coming to light. And now she could walk these streets with her head held high, no longer a victim, but a survivor, a warrior for what was right. She passed by a cafe where she and Lena used to sit, the memories of their conversation lingering. Lena's words had been painful, but they had made Ava stronger. And though their paths had diverged, Ava knew she had made the right choice. Ava found herself standing in front of a small park, the same one where she had once sat, lost in thought and full of doubt. Now, as she stood there, she realized just how far she had come. She was no longer the woman who had hesitated, unsure of what to do or who to trust. She had faced her past, faced the people who had lied and betrayed her, and come out stronger for it. She could hear the laughter of children playing in the background, a sound that had once seemed so distant, But now it filled her with hope. The world hadn't broken her. It had reshaped her, and she was ready to take on whatever came next. She took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the moment wash over her, and knew that no matter what happened, she had found peace. And that was something no one could ever take from her. Later that evening, Ava found herself walking down a quiet street, the moonlight casting a soft glow over the cobblestones. She stopped for a moment, letting the quiet of the night settle around her. Everything felt so still, so peaceful. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and now the weight of the past seemed so far away. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the silence. It was a message from an anonymous source. The contents were simple: "You did the right thing." Ava smiled to herself. It wasn't a message from someone she knew, but it didn't matter. The message confirmed what she had known all along: she had made a difference. No matter how dangerous or difficult the journey had been, Ava had stayed true to herself and to the cause. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Ava walked away from the city center, her pace steady but unhurried. There was no need to rush anymore. The chaotic whirlwind of the past had finally settled, and now she was ready for the next chapter of her life. She had faced the storm, had walked through the fire, and come out stronger on the other side. And while the road ahead was still uncertain, Ava knew that she would face it with the same courage and resolve that had gotten her this far. The night was quiet, the world around her at peace, and she walked forward, no longer burdened by secrets, no longer haunted by the past. The future was hers now, and with each step she took, she felt lighter, freer. She was finally free to live her life, to be the person she was meant to be.